Welcome, everybody, once again to the Exiled Entertainment. Today, we're going to be talking about a very powerful film, a film that talks about historical, let's just say, theories and thoughts and gives you ideas about what it could be to have the power of God in one's hand. But who better to talk about this with than the boss man, a guy who already thinks he's a god? What's going on, boss man?
Oh, you think I'm a god, all
You
right?
think you're a god?
Yeah. I have the power to destroy the world.
Well, no. I mean, you have a e-fed, but or a wrestling thing that you control. That's
That
one
was
thing.
that was like that is like a dead brand. I
That
killed my own creation.
that
The
being said, we are
NW.
talking about Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer. I didn't because I don't watch a lot of television, so I don't see a lot of trailers. My entertainment usually consists of Peacock and a lot of other things like that, YouTube, Netflix, and things of that nature. So I didn't even know this was coming, and I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad that Trips and I went to see it in our double feature, and it made me really think a lot of different things about power and life and how precious it is. You being someone who is fascinated by Nolan's work and by Killian's work, what was your initial take on the story of Oppenheimer?
Well, first, when I heard that this was going to be his next film, because this was after Tenet, and this was also his first film without Warner Brothers. He'd been working with Warner Brothers for basically 2 decades. Yeah. He did, of course, the Dark Knight trilogy. He did Inception. One of my favorite Christopher Nolan films, Insomnia, and was the second film. That was like the year when Robin Williams had like 2 breakout performances in drama, that and 1 Hour Photo. And Al Pacino was great in that movie as well. But so he was doing a lot of stuff for Warner Brothers. Well, when Tenet came out, this was around the time when the pandemic happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so HBO and Warner Brothers, their bright idea, which again, other companies did the same, but HBO was kind of the forefront with this, was they were going to release their entire 2020, 2021, part of 2021 slate of movies that were supposed to come in theaters exclusively to HBO Max. And unlike Disney Plus, fuck you, Disney, they didn't charge you extra. You just had to be subscribed to HBO Max. And so Nolan, being somebody who believes that, like, especially with his films, they should be seen on the biggest and the best screen possible, was upset about this. Because not only the box office, now it still did release in theaters. But again, if you had the choice between watching it at home and watch it like driving however long to see it, depending on how bad of a movie fanatic you are, you kind of like, oh, I could just flip it on there and don't have to pay a damn thing if I'm already subscribed. So during that period, Nolan and Warner Bros. Were on very bad terms, which led to Nolan leaving Warner Brothers and joining up with Universal, which is where this is the first Christopher Nolan film under Universal since him leaving Warner Brothers. So some context onto that.
Well, just some context as far as you and I go. You are that movie fan who you'll travel as far as you need to see a great film. Where I'm the type who likes to sit at home on the couch and watch on my TV. But what I think you and I will both agree, this movie needs to be seen in the theater. Like this movie, you need that theater experience to really feel the power coming from. I hate to like compare this to someone like Michael Bay, but the explosions and the just like the gut-wrenching feeling of how powerful this thing, and I don't call it a thing because during the movie it is an idea. It is not until late in the movie that you see the absolute power that they've created. It is a thing. It is a theory. It is an idea that a group of people, but ultimately one man conjured up and created.
Yeah, and that was the thing, like, like regarding seeing it in theaters. Yeah, like this movie had a lot of hype as well because it was going to be released. And Nolan does this. He did this also with Interstellar back in 2014. Which shit, that's next year will be 10 years since that movie came out. Jesus Christ! But it was 2013, 14, right? I want to double check or 2014. Let me double check. But like with this movie, oh yeah, it was 2014. Okay, just wanted to make sure. But anyway, so this movie was being hyped up, being released in 70 millimeter. Well, and of course, there's only 30 theaters in the world that can play 70 millimeter, and 19 of them are here in the U.S. and 2 of them are here in Texas. So there's been a lot of controversy with this movie here and elsewhere, where it's been having a lot of issues playing in 70 millimeter. I was fortunate enough to watch it in IMAX 70 millimeter. But and as far as right now, it's been kind of going good in regards to, but like to kind of give y'all an idea of how pissed off people were and how badly people wanted to see this in 70 millimeter. You have people who flew, like to Dallas, wherever, who flew from other states, other cities. You don't even know how many people I heard say I came down here from Houston or Austin, which is shocking that they didn't have a 70 millimeter in Austin, to be quite honest with you. And other cities, and this movie was like, like it was like the hot tickets. It felt like a concert. Like some of the people were flying from different parts of the U.S. just to see this movie in a specific area, and I find that fascinating.
Well, and I also think it's a beautiful thing that though we've transitioned into mostly film into a digital media, there are still people wanting to see the power of this movie in any movie for that matter in the old school film reel 70 millimeter. I personally, it doesn't bother me. It's no skin off my ass, but I wanted to see the story, and I like to like clarify that between you and I, like for other people. I'm your basic fan. I love a good film, and I will critique a good film, and I will give praise to a good film all day long because I'm into the story. You are basically what I would consider a savant and a connoisseur of fine film. Like you and I have had discussions, and you'll go back to quoting old Italian films and old French films and silent movies. Like I think that you would have fit in just fine in the era of Charlie Chaplin and the silent film, because you can appreciate the art of it. And I think you, unlike many people, are ahead of the curve as far as looking at film as an art instead of just entertainment. Where me, I find it to be art, but not to the level you do.
Yeah, and that's the what do you call it? And going to the 70 millimeter thing, I like watching it in 70 millimeter. Like I was like one of those guys who was like, I think the last time I saw film in 70 millimeter was actually Interstellar, but I don't have too much of a memory of it to where I could compare it to be like, but I wanted to see what it looked like. And I saw, and again, there is a difference. You watching it in the digital format and then watching it in 70 millimeter. There is a major difference, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate people like Nolan who still want to keep certain formats like that alive and not just go with the easy route, which is, let's make it digital. Let's just continue onward with progression of what is going on currently.
Well, in a comparison, I guess I could say, like, there are those who collect, if we're talking about music, right? Their music has become a digital art as well.
Yeah.
And it's become that. So everything's on MP3, MP4, etc. But some people love the old sound of that vinyl record feel that you put on an old school record.
Oh yes. Like I got a record player maybe a year or two ago. I got it for a birthday gift for my mother, and I got like some I don't got because vinyl is a little bit heftier in terms of collecting due to the size of them and all that. But I have a few ones. Like I got the Crow soundtrack, which I was very happy about. But still need to play it actually because I want to see how like Big Empty by Silver Pilots sounds on vinyl. But what do you call it? Like I got like some L7s for like the Halloween movies that came with a 4K set that I got with them. And yeah, playing like the Halloween theme on vinyl, it just hits different than playing it on streaming or whatever, on Spotify or Pandora. I'm a Spotify user, but Pandora or whatever for other people.
Well, see, and I love music. You know, this like I go back to bands like Led Zeppelin, who really just inspired me as a child, which then again led me to things like Tool and other bands. Go back to like more recently, I'm in love with the vocals of Rag and Bone Man and the way he can like convey a message.
Oh yeah.
And
I know who you're referring to.
And,
well, yeah, like even like modern days, like my one of my favorite bands I love currently is the band called Ghost, and I've kind of called them the unofficial horror movie soundtrack people because they did a song for Halloween Kills and they did one recently for Insidious, the new Insidious film. But they have a theatrics about them. They have like a story about them. Like, you know, they've been around for centuries, you know, and all that. I kind of like the extra work that they put into the lore instead of just saying, no, we're just a band who does music.
But then beyond that, like, and this, I promise you all that this is leaning back into Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is like there's a love for historical presence that sometimes I feel like maybe we shouldn't rush into, you know, the next level of technology, the next future of advancement. Like enjoy what we have now a little bit before we rush. And that is basically the premise of this movie in my eyes. You know, it tells a story of Robert Oppenheimer, a brilliant man just in general. It shows his early years. He had an anger issue, and which is very well taken when he conflicts with his professor, and his learning and everything he's gone through. But it goes forward and backwards. If you're starting the movie, you'll see him as he's older, starting to work for Robert Downey Jr.'s character, who again, killer fucking character. Like he killed it. Like one of Robert Downey Jr.'s best roles ever. And the man that had played Einstein, like the body language and the way they carry themselves. And you watch how Oppenheimer, who's Jewish, and his, you know, struggles with the Communist Party. And I'm not talking about the Soviet Communist Party. I'm talking about the American Communist Party, which is all stuff that is historically accurate. These were things that happened. And, you know, his life in general and how it all led up to this crescendo and how everything he did almost destroyed him.
Yeah, and speaking of Robert, like, because a lot of people have been, like, I guess, thinking that he's done for because like after what was it Endgame, his next big movie was Doolittle, which did do well, but I still say people still forget how great of an actor he was. I saw that in the movie Zodiac, which one day I do want to talk about, probably my favorite David Fincher film, and that's with Fight Club. But what do you call it? So I've always knew he was a great actor outside of the MCU and all that stuff. But he, like I said, he killed it. Like it was amazing how many people he had in this movie. Like some big names and some kind of smaller names that are kind of rising. Like Josh Peck was in this fucking movie. From Drake and Josh. I couldn't believe I saw him in the trailer. I was like, "Is that Josh?"
Well, you also had fucking
Go ahead.
You also had fucking Matt Damon in this movie, who also
Matt Damon. Yeah.
But to get back to the center point, the beginning of the movie, as he was going through school, what was your opinion of Oppenheimer? You know, did you, as a youth, as a young man going through university?
I'm a big Cillian Murphy fan. So like I was happy to see him have a starring role because besides Sunshine and fucking 20 Days Later, he's in, well, Red Eye 2, he was kind of the lead. He's always been that supporting actor, especially in Nolan's movies. And so I was very curious to see how he would do in this one in regards to it. And as far as like the opening, because I liked how it was kind of, because at first I was kind of confused with them going back and forth. Mm-hmm. I kind of liked that they didn't just tell you, oh, here's this year. Oh, here's this year. They kind of just went back and forth as they went along to his early days to basically the court proceedings. I also liked something they did with the Einstein character where, of course, they were talking about something, but we didn't find out until the end of what he said.
Which ultimately became the twist of the entire movie. But
yeah. Which I thought that was good. I wasn't walking in thinking it was going to be something like that and whatnot. And so I appreciate that. And then again, with Robert Downey Jr., that was basically the impetus of why he had issues with him. Was how Einstein shunned him after he talked to him.
But it wasn't anything that he had said, it wasn't, we'll get into that, but
yeah,
in the beginning you see a young man who's very frustrated, who's trying to achieve greatness at a young age, and it's all there, like he's brilliant, there's no denying that, but he was also kind of ridiculed a bit, and when he broke that beaker in the beginning of the movie, and he was, oh no, you can't go to the lecture, you have to clean all this crap up or whatever, and he took that personal, like, he has an issue with me. And then come to find out later, his professor didn't have an issue with him. He thought he was brilliant. It was interesting to watch that. He was his own worst enemy in the beginning of the film, I felt. And his poor decisions, and for instance, like, and I'll just say it, Oppenheimer in this movie, he's a whore. Like he's a whore.
Yeah.
He has that characteristic with you. But, like they discussed, he traveled over to meet some of his heroes, and he did all these things, and eventually, so if you don't know who Robert Oppenheimer was, he's called the father of the atomic bomb because it was his group that made the atomic bomb. And to be fair, I know that a lot of people, it's very controversial that for what the atomic bomb eventually did, Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but what this really does explain is that we were in a race against the Nazis to create the ultimate weapon. And it shows the back and forth and how serious this was. And, how stressful that could be, when they put this, they first off in his creation of fusion and using all these abilities, this knowledge, and bringing up the greatest minds he could, but who he could trust and he couldn't trust. This was a life and death scenario, because had they not done what they did, the question could be said, would we still be here now?
Exactly. And that's the thing with that, is that, like, it's all about like racing for the basically the same goal in a way, trying to beat the other.
Well, I mean, and the best I can compare it to is the race to the moon. The United States and Russia and everyone trying to get the first man on the moon. It was a big deal. But that was almost friendly competition, where this was, again, life and death. We were going through a war with an enemy that had no mercy, that were willing to annihilate an entire, let's just say, sect of people. Adolf Hitler will go down in history as one of the most cruel, monstrous people in the world. But in his eyes, he was doing God's work. He was doing what he thought was right. And, his hatred for the Jewish people may have been his downfall in all this. And they discussed that. And these scientists that were coming together and working together, and yet some of them still were trying to spy for the Russians and for other people, just to, just because they wanted to get them ahead. It was so interesting watching the dynamics of people that he considered friends, and then come to find out they were a danger to him, and he didn't want to believe that.
Yeah, and that's we were talking about the him being a quote unquote whore, but For example, like even someone he was with that was communist, I believe, correct?
Yeah, she was a communist.
Played by Florence Pugh, which, yeah, I was very happy in that seeing her.
Of course you were. Of course you would take a serious moment and refer to her tits.
I see. I never said anything like that.
You were going there. Let's be real.
I was like, I've been a fan of her since, what was it? Well, she also played Paige in the movie Fighting with My Family. I didn't see that till later on, but that was like, that would have, if I saw it first, that probably would be my first introduction, but mine was Midsommar. And she played the only enjoyable character besides David Harbour in Black Widow. But yeah. But see, I wasn't gonna say nothing about her breasts, but you did. So it's your fault.
So there is a transition in the movie, as we said earlier. They're having a deposition with him, and they're basically questioning his loyalty to the country throughout the film, like because we're going back and forth from the past to the future. Robert Downey Jr.'s character hires Oppenheimer to work for him, and one of the jokes he makes is, "Oh, well, your residence is right across. It's a very nice commute to the facility." And he sees Albert Einstein at the pond, and he walks over, and he said, and Robert Downey Jr. says he's always there around this time. He goes over there and he says something to Albert Einstein, and they were friends. And I think we'll get to that towards the end because it's a very, this is one of those ones that I kind of I don't want to spoil, but at the same time, it's very powerful.
And we can always do a spoiler warning near the end, near that point, so we can, that way no one gets be like, "Oh, you spoiled the movie." Like,
so he walks over to Albert and he says something to him. And Albert Einstein in this movie, whoever the actor was that played him, did a very wonderful job. And he was telling him, he muttered something to him, and Albert nodded at him and walked away.
Tom Conti, he's the one who played him.
He walks away and he walks towards Robert Downey Jr.'s character, and Robert looks at him and says, "Albert," and tries to acknowledge him, and he just bends his head and shakes it and just keeps walking. And that was something that stuck with Robert's character, Stroud. And Strauss? Anyway, it stuck with him throughout the film, and it stuck with him throughout the entire film to cause a resentment towards Oppenheimer, making him believe that Oppenheimer had turned all of these people against him. It was a horrible, he besmirched him, and it changed the way the outlook. So we continued with the film, and we get to New Mexico, where they built this small city, and they were working on the atomic bomb, and they worked tirelessly. And they, every time they got closer and how much uranium they had mustered up, they would drop marbles in glasses and domes in a glass to basically signify how far they've gotten. They were talking about fusion and what would be better. Would a hydrogen bomb be better? The explosion would be so much greater. And then they said, but yes, atomic radiation, that might be better because it'll be smaller. But they didn't take anything to think about the fallout and what that would cause, the radioactive fallout at the time. They were so consumed with creation of this ultimate power. During that time when he was so consumed by all of this, going from him being a youth to now he's on this project, what was your opinion on Oppenheimer as he continued his work on the atomic bomb?
Well, it goes to the idea of you don't care what the costs are, even long-term costs, as long as you get to the end goal. And unfortunately, that will blind a lot of brilliant individuals due to that, because their goals to get the project done with no exceptions. And as anybody who knows of Chernobyl and other radiation incidents, that type of stuff will cause long-term effects. By the way, side note, check if anybody hasn't seen the show Chernobyl on HBO. Very good show from the same people who did the Last of Us show. But I just use that as an example because I was actually watching a couple episodes of Chernobyl after watching Oppenheimer, because that reminded me of that in a way, because of people unknowingly going into something that they have no understanding of, and it basically destroying them.
And I'll get to more of that because Trips brought something up after we left, and it really just shocked me when I thought about it after she brought it up. But I'll get to that after we get to the climax of I guess we'll say the second act. So they're working together. They develop this, and then there's a fear, and he actually returns. Like, this is before that initial meeting with Einstein. This is again in the past, where he brought some of the paperwork and some of the theories to Einstein and asked him what he thought about, because there was a fear that there could be a reaction, a continuous reaction, that one explosion would lead to another explosion, and ultimately igniting this powerful weapon could ignite the atmosphere and kill us all.
Yeah, and it's like what I remember what he said about like the chances are less than zero when he was telling Matt Damon.
Less than one. It was less than
one.
Yeah.
He's like, I like zero. He's like, what would you want with theory alone?
It's just he was humbled at a point too, because someone created the ability to do this, and it didn't make sense, right? The idea of the atomic bomb and this fusion explosion, they did the math and it didn't work. Mathematically it didn't work, but they did it. They figured out a way to do it, which I found was very impressive. That even a brilliant mind like he was humbled. Like I said, they end up building this whole city. His wife and his son were there. During this time, he was also still sleeping with the communist woman. And the last time they slept together, he told her he could not return. He said that he can't come back. And she, there was a big sticking point with them, that she was always mad at him because, she didn't want him, but then she did want him. It was weird, a weird dynamic between them.
It does remind me of a few women in my life.
But then when he told her the last time, I can't return, she was very heartbroken when he said that, because she said, you said if I called, you would come. He said he couldn't do it anymore. And just to be clear, Oppenheimer was a very he thought a lot with his dick, I hate to say that, but a lot of great minds did. He slept with his best friend's wife, and there was a sticking point later in the movie where he said, because his best friend ended up killing himself at one point, we find out. And he said, could he have found out about that? He goes, that's blasphemous. There's no way he knew. It's they try to poke, at him through his friends, even though he did these stupid, idiotic things. They tried to use those against his character. He was beloved by his friends, but he still was a piece of shit. I love that about the character, that he wasn't perfect. He was definitely flawed.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that they didn't gloss over, that because so many, and I've talked to us before, so many biopics or so many movies about certain people, they always love to gloss over anything that is that could be make them look bad, and certain a lot of movies, especially on high big name singers, characters, whatnot. And it always irritates me because I want to see the flawed side of them too, because it makes me kind of relate more, instead of just being oh, this person's so perfect, he did this, did that, he did no wrong, or she did no wrong, or whatever.
Yeah, and this movie did that. I think that this movie did this beautifully. He's our protagonist to the story. He's basically the hero of our story, but he's not perfect. And so that leads into the eventual detonation of the first atomic bomb. And there was that fear that the atmosphere could explode, but they had to test it, and they did. And it was an overwhelming success. And they had done it. They had completed this. They had created the ultimate weapon. And Oppenheimer was very proud. He's proud of his team. They discussed it. But also during this time, the Nazis had given up. The Nazis had lost. So you had just the Japanese now attacking. And Oppenheimer, I think he was blinded by his goals. As a Jewish man, he was trying to protect. He was against the Nazis simply on principle alone, because of his Jewish people. Yeah. But when the Nazis were gone, and it wasn't about his people, he wanted to keep pushing, and he kept pushing and pushing for this weapon. And I truly believe it was because of the scientific breakthrough he was trying to make. he was blinded by his own goals, I believe. But they pushed on. They ignited the test. It was a success. The military then took 2 crates and they left. And he was sit there to wait at this small, basically created city until they were told by President Truman over the radio that they had dropped the bombs, Fat Man, Little Boy, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
And I also like when they tested the bomb. Like that was, of course, that was like the big scene in the movie. Everybody was excited to see that, because I know Nolan is saying that he basically did everything in his power to make that scene as realistic as possible and not use CGI and all that. What I liked about it was that it didn't, like, you didn't hear some big bang. No. It wasn't some, like, you know, when
it was delayed. It was delayed.
Yeah, like I like that was just like basically the beam of light. It's the first thing you saw, and then the delayed of basically the aftermath of it with the winds and all that other stuff. I like that. I was not expecting that. I was expecting to see a giant bang and the fucking my eardrums popping out by the IMAX screens or whatnot, and I was like,
and then there was a silhouette of the horrifying mushroom cloud, like that sticks with me.
Yeah,
and so once again, like, he goes and he gets a crowd of the people that were there to congratulate them on the job well done. But it was at this moment you see that he has a change in him. He realizes that what he's done, like, he's just annihilated, you know. And originally they thought it would be 70,000 people. Like, they turned out to be almost 200,000 people. And Oppenheimer realizes that, and I think I quoted this to you. This was the quote I came up with, that he was a man who was given the power of God and then realized he didn't want it anymore. And that was a powerful moment, because he's literally visualizing everyone in the auditorium melting away from atomic fire. So then I would say that's probably the crescendo of Act 2. Would you say?
Yeah.
Now we're heavy into the deposition, and they're trying to take away his government clearance because they're saying he's not trustworthy. And they are literally bringing in everyone, his friends, this and that. His brother, who was a member of the Communist Party, all these people that could not be trusted. And it gets like they're trying to turn this man who, let's be honest, kind of saved everyone, and to the ultimate villain, because once he created this weapon, he realized the magnitude of what he'd done and was trying to say, no, this is too powerful for anyone to have. He was trying to walk it back. He had done this, and he realized what he had done. And when people were trying to profit off of it, he was trying to stop them, namely someone like Robert Downey Jr.'s character.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with all this, and they were using his different, like, oh, were you communists? All this other stuff. They were trying to use basically everything in their power to basically destroy him, his reputation, and all that. And again, with Robert Downey, it was all because of that little incident with Einstein that basically he held on to for years.
So as the movie's been going on, we learn also that Robert Downey Jr. is trying to join the Senate, the United States Senate.
Yeah.
And he's going through his own deposition. And, you know, he knows that they're going to bring up Oppenheimer. He knows that they're going to do all this. And in a crazy twist of fate, the scientists speak up against Strauss, Robert Downey Jr.'s character. And this is, I guess, where we'll get to the spoilers. And you find out that Robert Downey Jr. was the one that set up the deposition. He was the one who planted all the information to make Oppenheimer look bad, ultimately because he thought that Oppenheimer turned the scientific community against him. He goes back to saying that conversation with Einstein, he was never the same towards him. that he did all this stuff, and that he hated Robert Downey Jr.'s character because he doesn't know why or what he told him, but it was after that everyone hated Strauss's character. When in actuality, it wasn't that. Strauss is trying to, capitalize on Oppenheimer's work. He was trying to, give sell isotopes to people, and you don't. This type of technology, this type of weapon, does not belong in everyone's hands. Ultimately, started the Cold War. I mean, it was things like this that it's too powerful for one person to control. Like it's just not feasible. But all of this, and again, based on the movie, this caused the wedge. It caused the Oppenheimer to be dragged through the mud, and it was a very hard time for him. It was during that same deposition of Strauss, though, that when the scientists spoke up against him, they're sitting waiting in his office, trying to figure out if he's going to become a member of the Senate, because they have to vote. And he goes off and tells his aides, all because he said this, this, and this. And then the aide tells him, "You're not going to be a member of the Senate. They didn't vote for you." And one of the deciding votes, again, and another, I guess, would be called a twist, came from John F. Kennedy, that he voted against him becoming a member of the Senate.
Oh, yes. Like some young guy named Kennedy.
And it's at that point you find out, when one of the aides looks at him and says, maybe they just didn't like you. Maybe they didn't talk about you that day. Maybe they talked about something more important. And that really, you could tell that stuck in Strauss's craw. He was like, "The fuck are you talking about? How dare you?" Like basically Strauss felt like he gave Oppenheimer everything, and yet he was treated like garbage. So then we rewind. We go back to when Oppenheimer walked up to
Einstein.
Yeah, and Einstein was telling him, because Strauss has been feeling guilt for creating this weapon. And Einstein told him, "Do you remember when they gave me the award for this, this, and this, and this?" He said, "Yes." And he goes, "That award wasn't for me. That award was for all of you. One day they're going to give you an award, do something for you, and it won't be for them. It won't be for you. It'll be for them, and it will be to ease their guilt, basically. They treated you like shit all this time. They run you through the mud. They put you through this deposition. They do all this horrible stuff to make you feel like a villain, and they're going to give you an award one day to make themselves feel better for what they've done to you." And Einstein looked at him, and then Oppenheimer looked back and said, "Albert, do you remember when we said that we were going to set the Earth on fire? We were going to blow up we were going to create something that was going to destroy the world?" And he goes, "Yeah." Because I think we did. And that moment in the movie is what made me go, wow. It hit me then. Like, as much as this movie was powerful, that was the moment where I said, oh my God. And he's talking about how this ultimate weapon, it could be what kills us all. And not in his time, because clearly he's gone and dead, but he gave us the tools to kill ourselves. And look at where we're at now in society. We have Russia with all these weapons of mass destruction, us with these weapons of mass destruction, China with weapons. All of us are armed to the teeth with a weapon that nobody needs to have. And it's in Oppenheimer's mind, I felt like he was saying, and it's all my fault. I gave you all the tools to kill each other, to destroy everything.
I do believe, I've always said this, that some form of these types of things would probably be made later on. It may have just taken more years if we had them, depending on events that were going on during the period, because it's always like the lust for power, which is always a lot of people's big undoing, or the lust to win whatever war or even disagreement you had, like people have.
Well, to be fair, there's and you and I have talked about this. There is no true winner in war. There's only the survivors who tell the tale. That doesn't mean you're a winner. That just means you survived.
Yeah. And something I was going to say regarding the discussion about rewarding after ridicule, that hit me too because, like, again, in a smaller aspect, but that kind of reminded me of myself, where they're going to hate you, but then they're going to basically like put you up on a pedestal or whatever. Hold you up in the air, like, and all that. But first they're going like and all that. So that resonated with me in a personal matter as well. But again, it was in a smaller scale to what Oppenheimer was.
We talked about stuff like that even before this movie. Like,
oh yeah,
like even this before that we saw this movie, we had a discussion about that. They're going to one day praise you, but it's for them. It has nothing to do with you. It's everything to do with them calling you every other name and vilifying you. And so that was a very powerful moment as well, because you do see the scene where they are giving him an award and everyone's shaking his hand. And what I loved in this scene was his wife, when this man who had run him through the mud and was part of the deposition to try to destroy Oppenheimer, he shook his hand. Oppenheimer was a better man than I, because he shook his hand. And he went to his wife to shake her hand, and she just looked at him like she had never forgot what he. And again, this is years after. Like, this is many years after.
Yeah.
Tried to shake his hand. She would have none of it. She would have none of it. That is a wonderful woman to have by his side, and who went through all the shit with him, his adultery and everything, and still stood by him. But again, like, they tried to run her through the mud, and she had her faults. Like, she had a drinking problem and things of that nature. But like, it was just powerful, if I could say anything else.
And shout out to Emily Blunt for great performance as well for that.
And I'll say this, and we're talking about, I don't think they realized how powerful the weapon they made and the long-term effects. John Wayne did a lot of his Westerns out there. And a lot of the cast and crew that worked on those movies out in New Mexico, where they did the bomb blast, all died. They all died of cancer or some sort of illness due to the radioactive fallout. And I didn't find that out till later. Another like connection, like it left a lasting memory of death. And it's an unseen death, and something that you can't visualize. You can use, scanners. You can use all kinds of like radiation detection, but you don't see it. You don't see it ripping your body in pieces. You don't see it killing you slowly. But it did.
You can't watch Chernobyl, people. It's a great show.
And so we come to the climax of the movie, and it basically shows the world being blown up and the possibility of that happening. And it goes back and it makes you really think, are we mature enough as a society to hold this kind of power? I would say no.
Yeah.
It's a giant game of chicken, and who's going to flinch first. But even if it doesn't land on our soil, it lands on someone else's soil, all we're doing is we're leaving a lasting memory of death.
Yeah, because that's like the whole thing. We all have the warheads and all that, and like, one, like any of us, that's like could do. That's like, again, going back to the whole AI thing. If AI eventually takes over, to be like the Terminator movies, where these things could be like sent without any worry, without anybody actually pulling the trigger, if it got to that point one day.
And that's where we've gotten to. War is now fought by remote control. It's disturbing. Like, the one thing you could say about things in World War I, World War II, is that it was hand to hand on the ground, boots there on the ground fighting. And now thousands of people can die at the push of a button.
Yeah. And like assassination attempts can be done by a fucking drone.
Now, that being said, this was a very powerful movie.
Yes.
I'm very stingy with my ratings. But overall, Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, if you had to give it a grade, what would you say?
I would probably give it a 4 out of 5. I think that was either because I'm basing it off of everything: the performances, the cinematography, the score, sound design, all that good stuff.
I'm going to go 4.5 out of 5. Like I said, I'm very stingy about what I would say was better than Batman. I loved Batman for the story and what Batman was. But as far as like a historical, powerful movie that I think is just amazing, and I think people should see it. I don't think it's going to be for everybody, but if you're someone who just loves and to be real, it's a true story. It's the story of Oppenheimer. I think that it needs to be seen in the theaters to get the real effect. The only thing that draws it back for me is that holds it back is that you can watch it at home, but you won't get the same effect. I think a movie to get a true 5 out of 5 from me is going to have to be something that can be watched anywhere, anytime, any platform, any source of media. You have to watch it. This is something I really feel like to get the true experience, you have to see it in theaters.
Yeah, there's a few I probably would watch it again at least once because there are certain movies I may not watch either for multiple reasons. That's why I'm waiting to hear once we get into Beau is Afraid to hear your thoughts on that one. I got to actually rewatch it myself because I haven't seen it since I saw it in theaters. So I myself even have to watch it again because it's been months. But and I said in my reaction, I may never watch it again, but now I have a reason to. Not because it's a bad like to give a little things, not because it just you'll know once you see it. But yes. So in the next week we will be discussing Beau is Afraid, which will cap off our 3-week period. Due to work, I don't like. We'll probably talk about this off air. Like we've been discussing about doing this weekly, but I may kind of go back to the every other week because I kind of like the 1 week we just do one show and all that. It's kind of just.
And we'll talk about that in the next episode of Exiled Outcast because it kind of suits that.
Yeah. So, and since this episode is going to be out on Wednesday of course, Exile's going to be Friday, I do want to, before we end this, I do want to give a shout out to Brandon Martin and the boys at the Rant and Rave podcast who are, of course, doing their 6-hour extravaganza. And since this is going to premiere on Wednesday, check it out Thursday with the Rant and Rave episode 200.
Very wonderful milestone.
Yeah, and they have a big interview, and plus they have some other stuff up their sleeves. So definitely check them out tomorrow on Brandon Martin's channel. I'll probably leave the link of it either in the description or the chat. And show some love to Rant and Rave and their 200 episodes. So with that, we'll be in this here. Like I said, we'll be back next week with Beau is Afraid, which of course is going to be one that I'm sure not a lot of people know about, but they will after next week. So with that, I am of course Chayton.
And I'm Dan.
And we will see you all next time. Take care.